So this evening we start chapter 5, Karma Vairagya Yoga, the renunciation of action. Daniel, can I ask you to poke that box for me, please? Bravo.
Yeah.
So, will you help us out, please, Eva?
Of course. Arjuna Vacha Samyasam Karmanam Krishna Punaryogam cha Shamsasi Yachreya Etayorekam Tanme Bruhi Sunitshvitam. Arjuna said, renunciation of actions, O Krishna, you praise, and again yoga, performance of actions. Tell me conclusively that which is the better of the two.
So here again we have this age-old apparent tension. Should I act in the world? Should I leave the world and become a sannyasi? We have that same issue in Buddhism. Earlier forms of Buddhism were called Theravada Buddhism, also called by some people Hinayana, meaning become a monk or a nun. And later we had the Mahayana schools where, okay, you can practice Buddhism and be a householder. They're not inconsistent. So India has always had the ideal of the ascetic, the wandering ascetic who's left this world. The world has nothing for them. Completely devoting their life to sadhana and reveling in the infinite. And yet, Krishna says to Arjuna, fight. Why do you engage me in this? So the Lord answers this in the next verse with one of the subtlest and most important verses in the scripture. Help us out.
Shri Bhagwan Vacha Samyasa Karma Yogascha Nishreyasa Karabhubhau Tat Tayostu Karma Samyasa At Karma Yoga Vishishyate. The Blessed Lord said, renunciation of action and yoga of action both lead to the highest bliss. But of the two, yoga of action is superior to the renunciation of action.
Yes. And the point he's going to be driving at, we're dealing with that fifth element in our karma yoga journey. Act, O Arjuna, how? According to my swadharma, my inherent latent proclivities, in the yajna spirit be of service, renouncing my attachment to the outcome, to the fruits of action. Fifth element, renunciation of my identification with the sense of agency. So the essence of the teaching is this. In the beginning, when I have a lot of vasana pressure, act. First of all, he said in the last chapter, all beings will act according to Prakriti. What can restraint do? You're going to do it anyway. But how? Act in this intelligent way. And then in time, when the vasana pressure lessens, happens, the mind naturally starts to turn inward. We no longer have the yearning for all the various extroverted activities. We have the divine discontent, this mumukshutva, this burning desire for liberation. So in a sense, we don't have to worry about leaving the world. The world leaves us. The world leaves us. I like to say we are not healed so much by what we turn from, but by what we turn to. Now it's the next verse, I think, that I had thought of as the one that's so cool.
Should I go on?
Yeah.
Yeyam sa nitya samyasi yo na tveshti na kakshati nirdvando hi mahabhago sukham bandhat pramuchyate. He should be known as a perpetual sannyasi who neither hates nor desires. For free from the pairs of opposites, O mighty aunt, he is easily set free from bondage.
Yes. So it's not so much about getting rid of all the objects of desire. It's that person who tunes up the mind, has this intense introversion. It's functioning in the world, no longer agitated by the objects of the senses. This is the subtle, the deepest, and the real sannyas. Now, I like to tell this story. Some of you may have heard it before. So after Swamiji died, I went off to the Chinmay Mission ashram in Mumbai and was there living as a brahmachari. And there we lived very simply. You had 3 dhotis, 3 quarters in your underwear. One you washed, one you wore, one was in the dirty clothes. You had a little tiny cell, little stone cell. You had a metal bed with a thin cotton mattress. You had a dresser, a desk, a chair, and a lamp, and a rubber bucket. And we lived out of the rubber bucket. You washed your room with the rubber bucket. You washed yourself with the rubber bucket. You washed your clothes with the rubber bucket. You washed the front of the porch of where all the cells were with the rubber bucket. You had your rubber bucket. It was your one possession. So I was there several weeks, and then up on the 2nd floor, one of the brahmacharis was in a rage. So he goes to the acharya, the teacher, he's all upset. So-and-so, the fellow with the cell next to his, had stolen his bucket, had used his bucket. So if we're caught up in I-ness and my-ness, getting rid of all the objects doesn't do any good. You'll obsess about a rubber bucket. So when we look at Viveka Chudamani, and by the way, I think the date we're going to start the next journey through it will be September 4. It'll be a Thursday evening. We'll firm that up later. But I think that's the original handbook to higher consciousness. That's really the cool journey. But there's a long section called the qualifications of a fit student. First one is Viveka. Second one is Vairagya. The third one we call Shamadhi Guna, qualities of Shama, etc. There's 6 of them. These are about tuning up. The first one, Shama, keeping the mind introverted after having again and again detached it from the chaos of the sense objects. Dhamma, not letting the mind get pushed out by thinking about these qualities. And then he talks about sense withdrawal, uparati. I think in the Raja Yoga tradition, that's called dharana, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that classic metaphor, like a tortoise with its head and 4 limbs, 5 limbs, which are symbols for the 5 senses, all withdrawn within. But then Shankara says the best uparati is when the sense objects don't cause the mind to be forming all these with these. The practice is like water pouring through a wicker basket. Just let the sensory data pass through. This is real sannyas. Because we can't avoid war. Even when you're a brahmachari in an ashram, if you're attached to a rubber bucket, you're going to lose your serenity. Any thoughts on this? All right, next verse.
Sankhya yogo prithak pala pravadanti na panditaha ekamapyastitat samya ubhayor vindate phalam. Children, not the wise, speak of Sankhya yoga as distinct. Children, not the wise, speak of Sankhya and yoga as distinct. He who is truly established, even in one, obtains the fruits of both.
So here, if you are practicing karma yoga, those 5 elements we've been talking about, or you're practicing self-inquiry, Sankhya here, Jnana yoga, here Krishna says, both are valuable. And if you master one, you'll get the fruits of both. There's no war between the 2 paths. That's a false distinction. We act until something falls away. We don't act in that way anymore. But we act intelligently. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
Yatsankhye prapyate sthanam tatyogerapi gamyate ekam sankyam cha yogam cha yapashyati sapashyati. That place which is reached by the Sankhya's or Dhyanis is also reached by the yogins or karma yogis. He sees who sees Sankhya and yoga as one.
Yes. So basically these various paths have to do with the preliminary practices. I like to use this image. The mountain of truth has many pathways up. They differ from culture to culture. They differ from historical period to historical period. But on the top, there's only one temple of truth. It only has one door. That door is Aham. In the end, they all meet in some way of describing samadhi. Whether you do it through the way of karma yoga, raja yoga, bhakti yoga, or jnana yoga, you all meet in the same place. Oh, he's saying we should do karma yoga as well as self-inquiry? Yes. Do I need to run off to an ashram and do that? If that's your karma, you'll be led to do it. Do I need to do asana and pranayama? Can't tell you. If you're led to do it, then do it. Should I work with my chanting guru? Do all these various chants? Can't tell you. If you're led to do it, do it. Anything that we engage in that has as its outcome further purification of the inner equipment is useful. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
Sanyasastu mahabaho dukkhamaptu mayogatah yoga yukto munir brahma nachirena digachati. But renunciation, O mighty armed, is hard to attain without yoga. The yoga harmonized man of steady contemplation quickly goes to Brahman.
So here what he's saying is, if we act in the world and we try to stay attached to the people, places, things, and situations, and attain peace of mind, it's going to be very hard, nearly impossible. In the end, it still boils down to true renunciation. If we practice karma yoga, not just karma, there's a difference. I'm not saying act in the world according to your inherent proclivities, really dig in everything you get, being totally attached to the outcome events, and being very proud that you're the doer. That isn't going to work out too well. That will only thicken the vasana bundle. Peace will elude us. We don't act intelligently. Any thoughts on this? And the paradox is this brings us quietness of mind and also enhances the excellence of our work. The most efficient mind is the quiet mind. You, in fact, will work better if you practice karma yoga. Are you okay?
Yeah, I just want to adjust my back.
Okay. All right, next verse.
Yoga yukto vishuddhatma vijitatma jitendriya sarva bhutatma bhutatma kurvanmapi na lipyate. He who is devoted to the path of action, whose mind is quite pure, who has conquered the self, who has subdued his senses, who realizes his self as the self in all beings, through acting is not tainted.
Yes. So, if you're old enough to remember LPs, which you did on a turntable, record goes round and round and round. But if the arm doesn't come down and the needle touch the record, no music. So as long as we're not egoistically invested, let the karma chakra go on. So here he gives us again a reminder of the qualities of head and heart to work on while we're acting. So what was the first idea, please, Deepa?
He who is devoted to the path of action.
Yes. Don't think that refraining from action is going to help you. Unless you're led to a life of contemplation, then that becomes your action. Next idea.
Whose mind is quite pure.
Yes. So Swamiji always used to say, a single pointed mind is as good as no mind. Put your mind where your hands are working. When you're doing the dishes, endeavor to only do the dishes. When you're eating, only eat. When you're with a friend, be totally with the friend. When you're at work, put your mind totally there. Practice bringing your mind where your hands are working. Who's devoted to this? Next idea.
Who has conquered the self.
Yes. Here the self means the ego sense. Understanding in Gita, the word Atman has to be interpreted contextually. Sometimes it means the body, sometimes it means the inner equipment, sometimes it means the supreme self. In this context, it means having conquered the indulgent tendency of the mind. I was talking with a student the other night, and they have a hard time. They only want to do what they want to do, and they can't get themselves to do what they don't enjoy. So they think the solution is to take ADHD medicine. But the first thing I would do would be to recommend you try doing some yoga. So all of us have within us what I call the inner 2-year-old. I don't wanna go to bed. I want ice cream. You know that voice inside? And as yogis, we have to learn that that's not our friend most of the time. So we have to learn to not be tyrannized by raga and dvesha. This is what earlier he had said was attaining to yoga buddha, conquering the steed of the mind. When I'm willing to do anything for the rest of eternity, and I'm willing for it not to be a certain way for the rest of eternity. And we get opportunities for practice all the time. I don't know if any of you locally heard about Friday night. There was a shooting on 580. Did you see that in the local news?
Yeah.
We got caught in the traffic. I was out in Walnut Creek with a friend. We didn't know about it. So as we were doing Highway 80, coming on to 580, all of a sudden, stop traffic. We were stuck in traffic for 2 hours, barely moving at all. Some people were so crazy, they were trying to drive up over a barrier into a city side street. I mean, crazy things, getting stuck on the berm and flat tires. I mean, people who couldn't stand it. But for yogis, this is what is. What if we're going to be here in the car, just the two of us, my friend Gray, for the rest of eternity? Settle down and enjoy it. Don't fight what is. Everything becomes an opportunity for practice then. So that we're no longer at the affect, the insistent qualities of mind. Any thoughts on this? It's incredibly freeing. It's incredibly freeing when you realize if I have a feeling, it does not require me to act. A lot of us don't know that. If I'm angry, I've got to hit somebody or yell at them. If I experience fear, I have to run or lie. If I want ice cream, I've got to go get it. So this is what it means by conquering the self. This does not come overnight. But first of all, we have to see it as a quality to develop, to work on. Any thoughts on this? Only then can we begin to trust the deep intuition. The quality of the deep intuition is there's no sense of attachment to the fruits. Next idea.
Who has conquered? I think we covered this. He who has conquered the self.
We just did that one. The next idea.
Who has subdued his senses.
Same idea. Same idea.
And who realizes his self as the self in all beings.
Yes. So here's a very interesting practice. One of the slogans I like, God has no taste. God loves people that you and I would have nothing to do with. Can I practice loving as God loves? can I practice, first of all, at the level of the mind? Understand that my mind is not a whole lot different than anybody else's. If I have fear, if I have anger, why do I do it? I'm hurt, frightened. No, I know why other people do stupid things. So I work on compassion. This doesn't mean I condone the behavior of others. I begin to have some compassion for it. And at the deepest level, conscious being that's looking out of the eyes of everyone is my own self. Same Chidakasha, space of pure awareness. It's the same in everyone. Endeavoring to relate to the God in everyone, not their annoying personalities and I getting all caught up in my reactivity. Is that all the pieces of that verse?
Yes.
Okay. Any thoughts on this one? Again, simple to say, not necessarily easy to do. It's a practice. It's a practice. All right, next verse.
The next two verses are together.
Okay.
Naiva kinchit karo miti yukto manyeta tatvita pashyan shrunvan sprushat jigna. Wow, this is complex. Pashyan shrunvan sprushan grinnash nangachan swa panchashan pralapanvisrujan grihan unmishani mishannapi indriyanindriyartheshu vartanta iti dharayan. I do nothing at all. Thus would be the harmonized knower of truth. Thus would the harmonized knower of truth think, seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, going, sleeping, breathing, speaking, letting go, ceasing, opening and closing the eyes, convinced that the senses move among the sense objects.
So again, working on this renunciation of the sense of agency. I do nothing. The sense organs move among the sense objects. The mind mechanically reacts. The intellect judges this and that. I have no thoughts and feelings of my own. I am sthita, still. Ever the witnessing consciousness. None of it touches me. Now, practically speaking, how do we use these verses? So in my meditation seat, quiet in the mind, do some subject-object discrimination. I'm not the body. I'm not the prana. I'm not the feelings. I'm not the thoughts. I am that awareness that knows the thoughts and the space between them. Get a sense that I am that witnessing consciousness. Then, as I'm functioning in the world, frequently, especially if my mind starts to get agitated, stop for a moment. No, it's just the mind that's agitated. It's just the intellect that's confused. It's just the senses interacting with the objects. Koham, who am I? I do nothing. I'm like the center of the cyclone, still, never touch. Over and over and over. Someone says something unkind. You watch your mind react. Oh, that stung. Did it touch me? Or am I just aware of the stung mind? Oh, I'm just aware of the mind. Let's see if you can drop it. Any thoughts on the practice? This one we not only do in our meditation seat, but it's effective. It has to be practiced while we're acting in the world. So we see that there's a distinction. I do nothing. I'm the witness of the robot, the equipment which does the acting. Any thoughts on this? Next one.
ब्रह्मण्याधाय कर्माणि संगं त्यक्त्वा करोति यः लिप्यते नस्य पापेन पद्मपत्रमिवाम्भसा. He who does actions, offering them to Brahman, abandoning attachment, is not tainted by sin, just as a lotus leaf remains unaffected by the water on it.
So this is a classic image. The lotus grows in fetid or brackish water. It's all slimy down there. It's beautiful, fragrant bloom is above. So also Swamiji used to say, the mind is a sewer. Notice he didn't say, my mind is very pure. Your mind is a sewer. He said, the mind is a sewer. Filled with the reactions of the force of past action. Don't get involved. Get out. Here is where a meditation retreat or long periods of meditation start to become useful. Because if you go on a meditation retreat and you're there for several days, all sorts of things arise out of the unconscious. But what happens to them? I think all three of you have been like Vipassana retreats or meditation retreats, haven't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
So what happens when all sorts of sewer-like things arise out of the unconscious? What do?
Watch them.
And then what happens?
They go away.
There they change. They may come back. But it's never constant. They're not permanent. They're not real. But if I focus my attention on them and I get caught up in the stories around them, the very act of attending to them, the word I like to use is it reifies them. It makes them seem real to me. The yogi practices, I am not my thoughts and feelings. I have no thoughts and feelings of my own. So just mind. We can't even say whose mind it is in the end. I am ever the uninvolved, unattached witness. If I don't feed the beast, it starts to wither. There's a wonderful explanation of this process in Gaudapada's Karika on Mandukya. And he uses the term kashaya, which is the unloading of the unconscious, the vomiting up of the unconscious tendencies. Of course, the scriptures have a beautiful name for these unconscious tendencies. The Hridaya Granthi, the knots of the heart. They just arise out of the unconscious. And if you just be with them, then they start to loosen. And then they dissipate. And something else arises. But it's the same as we're moving through the world. We will draw to us exactly the circumstance, triggers what we've got in there. And believe me, sometimes we get humbled and bushwhacked by the intensity of the reaction. Who here thinks they've been cruising along with their yoga pretty well? Then all of a sudden, some worldly experience happens, and you have a reaction come up that you never expected. Humbling, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That's why I say, don't try to be spiritual. Be Brahman. Being spiritual is awfully hard work.
Mm-hmm.
It's very easy to start saying, oh, I'm spiritual. I don't react. I'm doing really well on the path. I've been doing this for years. Then life gives us this big upset. Then we get another opportunity to practice. Stay identified as Brahman, no matter how much of a jerk you are, or how intense or uncomfortable the reaction. it still doesn't touch you. What I have found useful is think of it like a very vivid nightmare. We've all had the experience of just some wild, crazy nightmare. You wake up in the morning and go, oh my God, where in God's name did that come from? But it was just a dream. Let it go. Next verse.
Kayena manasa buddhya kevalendriya yogina karma kurvanti sangatyaktvatma shuddhaye. Yogis, having abandoned attachment, perform actions merely by the body, mind, intellect, and senses for the purification of the ego or the self.
Yes. So, spend yourself in love in this world. What's the purpose of my actions? To exhaust your vasanas. So by the purification of the self, here it means reducing the intensity and the frequency of vasana without creating new ones. If you act according to your vasanas, what else can you do? In the spirit of service, letting go of attachment, working on this samadrishta, the most important part of this chapter. Stay identified with the witness. I do nothing. Let the equipment get its allotted dose of successes and failures, joys and sorrows. Be of service. Get out. World just go by. You are still unmoving witness. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
Yukta karma phalam tyaktva shanti mapnoti naishtikim ayukta kamakarena phale sakto nipathyate. The united one, the well poised or the harmonized, having abandoned the fruit of action, attains eternal peace. The non-united or the unsteady or unbalanced, impelled by desire and attached to the fruit, is bound.
So this is the key. All we get in life is work. Lord is the giver of the fruits of action, the karma phaladata. We act. The world may think it's successful. The world may think it's not successful. Other people may criticize. Other people may praise. Don't let any of it land. Let it pass through. None of it touches me. And again, one of the subtle traps is what Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche calls spiritual materialism. When the path itself becomes a possession, then I want to start looking good to other people and to myself. Look how renounced I am. Look at all the things I know. Do they see my halo glow yet? And then we start to be inauthentic. And eventually it's going to bushwhack us. Always does. So at the level of your mind, with yourself, strive for authenticity. Go. And if you can't let go yet, just keep noticing, I'm attached. I'll pass. Just keep watching. Just keep watching. We call this Sakshi Bhava, staying in the attitude of the witness. I do nothing. It's the equipment that acts. How and why does it act? The force of the past and the qualities of mind as it interacts with the larger karmic environment. Watch the light show. It's a movie. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
Sarva karmani manasa samyasyaste sukham vashi navadvare pure dehi neva kurvanna karayan. Mentally renouncing all actions and fully self-controlled, the embodied one rests happily in the 9-gate city, neither acting nor causing others to act.
So, 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, 2 ears, 2, 4, 6, 7, a mouth, gentle 8, rear end 9. Those are the 9 gates. The 9-gated city is just a poetic way of saying the body. But just like a person lives in a city, you are not the city. Just let the equipment do its business. Being unattached to the outcome. And you will experience a desire, a choice, and an action. It's going to happen. But there's no you there as an entity. desiring, choosing, and acting. It's an illusion. The desire just arises. The impulse just arises. The action just arises. You are the witness who's never touched by. Any thoughts on this? All right, one more.
न कर्तृत्वं न कर्माणि लोकस्य सृजति प्रभु न कर्म फल संयोगं स्वभावस्तु प्रवर्तते. Neither agency nor actions does the Lord create for the world, nor union with the fruits of actions, but it is nature that acts.
Yes. So prakriti, nature. Again, this word prakriti has the same two meanings as the word nature in English. I can go up to Muir Woods, walk in the redwoods, and enjoy the beauty of nature, the natural world. Or there's Jim who told another stupid joke. Oh, it's just his nature. So the equipment, the body, mind, and intellect, acts according to the force of the past, quality of the mind, the impress of the larger society. I do nothing. It's all a completely mechanical process. Well, why should I do anything? Try stopping. But there's nobody really there doing the acting. It's just functions. It's not personal. But if I'm foolish, I'll make it personal. Oh, look what I did. Oh, look what they did to me. Oh, I am so powerful. Look what I did. All of that is rooted in a lie. The Master Jesus phrased it this way: I of myself do no thing. It is the Father within that doeth the work. There's great insight in that. Because as I renounce ego-prompted activity, I don't care about the outcome, then the infinite can start moving through me. And my actions and my speech become perfumed by the infinite. When I get out of the way. Poor Deepa's badly jet lagged.
I've fallen asleep like 5 times and started snoring in them.
I know. Okay, we'll end a little early tonight. Let you rest. What verse are we on?
15.
We finished 15 or we're going to do 15?
You're going to do 15.
Okay, we'll end a little early. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om.